been before, somewhere that's out of my comfort zone. And my comfort zone's got pretty big over the years. So Jordan was, I don't know, just a fun place to go to see what it was about. It was not a backpack. I am not a backpacker. But we did some trekking. There are some hikes in here. We're thinking planes, trains, automobiles, right? Planes, no trains, automobiles, camel. What else? There was a 4x4 in there. There was a boat. So a little bit of sightseeing, a little bit of trekking. But it's a beautiful city. Sorry, beautiful country. Lots to see. And has anybody been to Jordan before? Awesome. So and that I hope to inspire you to go somewhere new, because I really enjoyed it. I'm going to start by not moving anywhere. There we go. Okay, so country of Jordan. What I should have done was gotten a bigger map to show you where it is. But we have Saudi Arabia down at the bottom, Israel up top. Out to the west is the Red Sea, and beyond that, Egypt. That's the part of the world we're in. The trip that I took, we started in Amman, went north up to some travels out to Mount Nebo, Lebanon, Petra. We were in Wadi Rum, we were in Aqaba, pretty much covered the entire western coast of Jordan. There's not much in the eastern regions. I'm sure lovely and beautiful, but on the western regions, a lot of civilization, a lot of history, a lot of culture, and pockets of real, because that's where that's where the Jordan River Valley is. So a lot of green, and you find those little pockets. It's quite beautiful. To bring in a little bit of a hiking reference, far out, we're now called now far out. Actually held the Jordan Trail. So this is, if you're so inspired, this is the Jordan Trail. And you can see it really does cover a lot of where I was. So while I wasn't trekking the entire Jordan Trail, it was very close to where I was. Now let me get my notes, because the Jordan Trail, I can tell you is 675 kilometers, about 420 miles. It goes through 75 villages. Typically takes 40 days to trek that entire trek. Again, I did not do that entire trek. And it's actually a pretty new trail. The Jordan Trail Association was established only in 2015. So it's pretty new, the trail itself, but as you'll see, lots of history in this region along that same area. Oh no. Yeah. That is also a trail. I mean, I did a screenshot of this from far out, so that must be a similar trail in Israel, but I do not know what it is. Okay, so what I do want to do is go all the way now to the top. Okay, very good. So, and I'm going to preface this by saying, I mean, so there was a trek involved, several treks, but I also want to talk about what is so nice about Jordan and why I really enjoy going. The slides are a little bit out of order, but we were improvising as we were going along here. So my disclaimer is this isn't a history lesson. I'm not a history person, nor I'm not a historian about the culture or the biblical references here. But there's, as you can appreciate, in this neck of the woods, there are settlements that go back thousands of years, like 6,500 BC. So there's a lot of history in this area. And as you saw from the big map, that western coast of Jordan is a pilgrim route, a trade route. It carried a lot of people, information, goods, north to south. Like the southern end is the Red Sea that gets you out to the Gulf. So there's a lot of activity in this area. One of the first places we went, a lot of Roman history. A lot of the first place we went to was Jerash. It is a walled Greco-Roman settlement dating back to about 7500 BC. They say it's the largest, most well-preserved of the Roman sites outside of Italy. It is a trade route from Petra in the south to Damascus in Syria in the north. The real cool thing about this is they only started to excavate Jerash in about the 1920s. It was completely unknown before that. So a lot of this is newly discovered. Let's see. One of the most notable features is this is Hadrian's Arch. And if anybody see these buildings down here, they were Mennonites from Ohio. That was very funny. So this is Hadrian's Arch. It was built in AD 129. So pretty impressive. I mean, my refrigerator can't work for more than a couple of years, but these things have stuck around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. We have the sanctuary of Zeus, the main colonnade through the city of Jerash. Can I zoom in here? Does anybody know what this is? Peppercorns. Pepper. I'd never seen a pepper tree before. I thought that was pretty cool. There's several amphitheaters that are very well known in this ancient city of Jerash. There's a south amphitheater. This housed or could hold 3,000 spectators. Was built at the end of the 1st century. This particular one, you can see, kind of see the gentleman here with the bagpipes. I don't know where the bagpipes are coming, but they apparently use that to demonstrate how acoustically perfect this amphitheater is. And it was pretty neat because if you sat up in the top and somebody stood right in the middle, so very softly, everybody could. It was very impressive, and again, particularly for its age. Nice overlook of Jerash itself, the main colonnade. Again, a lot of this, you can see how the land is built up on the side. A lot of this was just recently excavated. It's not known, prior to about the 1920s. Lots of columns, lots of Roman architecture. This was this is the North Amphitheater, a little bit smaller than the other one we just talked about. And then along there, just go through here, a lot of these colonnades, typical Roman. But the cool thing is, you could tell how much and how many different cultures were a part of this area, depending on the year. Want to talk a little bit about Amman. I was actually very surprised at how new Amman looked. Just some pictures here of what the city of Amman looked like. Now, Amman is the capital of Jordan. Jordan was only got its independence in 1948, 46. Sorry, May 25th, 1946. So this is a new city. There's lots of ancient parts of it, surrounded by ancient parts. We'll see some in a few moments. But the city itself is actually pretty new. I was saying to our tour guide, this is a pretty new city, but again, it just only came into its existence after the Second World War. So lots of modern amenities, lots of modern looking things. Mosques, the calls to prayer are just so amazing to hear and to see the culture react to it. It's very interesting, particularly as an outsider, just to see it all work out. This is a Roman amphitheater in the Hashemite Plaza, built in the 2nd century. This holds 6,000 spectators. There is also a museum right alongside of it. A lot of mosaics. The entire country of Jordan, lots of mosaics all through the different sites. And this is actually a museum that showcases a lot of the artwork, the mosaic artwork. The citadel, the Amman citadel. So citadel meaning the fortress built on high ground. It was built in the 7th to 8th century. You see the L shape there, built on one of the 7 hills of Amman. So fortress up there so they can watch what's going on around them. It is among the world's oldest continually inhabited areas, also called Philadelphia. So that was kind of interesting. And they do say that Phila, that it's the brotherly love. All the references do go back to that. So lots of these are Roman Roman arches, Roman colonnades. This is from that citadel overlooking Amman. Overlooking Amman. It is also called the White City. Again, very new, very compact. But very, very beautiful. People are so, and I tend to travel. I travel solo, so I tend to have people come up and want to talk and where are you from and why are you here, and everyone is just always so inquisitive. Everyone's very nice. This particular tour was a guided tour, so I traveled solo, but there was a group that I moved around with, and I mean I certainly do that in places where where I don't look like everybody else, perhaps. And I'm going as a solo person, it is certainly safer that way. But I remember after the trip thinking, I'd go back there on my own. I really felt that comfortable. And I wouldn't be the ugly American. Don't go doing that. But I felt comfortable. Oh yeah. I mean Arabic as well. But yeah, you had no problem. I mean, most younger folks, these days, a lot of English is spoken, so there were no problems whatsoever. One thing I do want to point out, so this is called, let me get to my note here. This is called Kai, meaning mother. Kai is the Qais, is a Muslim boy's name that means lover, but it was just named for I don't know if it's anyone in particular, but the area where this is, very strategic location, built in the 3rd century BC. See a Galilee out there? Golan Heights, Syria's out there, very strategic location. Again, for thousands of years, people making that commute, if you will, north to south along the Red Sea and on the Dead Sea. So again, lots of Roman architecture. Again, you see of Galilee out there, lots of fertile land in that Jordan River Valley. Absolutely beautiful. More amphitheaters. Again, along this same great route, there's a castle. I'm just put my page.
It's neat to see all the signs in it's Arabic and English.
Yeah. Here, so this is Al-Jud Castle. It's actually a Byzantine monastery, built around 1100 to 1300 AD, along a trade route at a pilgrimage. So people were forced to go through here on their travels north to south, and you'll see again very fertile land. I was actually amazed to see how much green there was there. Beautiful castle, very well built. But they had these little slits in the castle wall so they could protect their establishment. But beautifully done, beautiful views. Just a very beautiful structure there. And then we have moved on to Mount. Oh, I'm gonna have this. Where did I go? There was another slide in there. So this is Mount Nebo. So a little bit of biblical history there. So this is where Moses spent his final days. He was granted a view of the promised land there. And actually more likely out beyond that direction, that looks west towards the west bank. One thing I found interesting is these are milestones. I didn't know that's what it's saying. But these were along the routes that the trade routes and the pilgrim routes, and they were marked, and that's how they knew how far they were traveling. Milestones. Didn't realize that. Oh, there we go. Not me. A little bit out of order here. Another town, Madaba. Madaba's claim to fame is this mosaic here. It is a mosaic in the Greek Orthodox Basilica of St. George. It is the earliest representation of Byzantine Jerusalem or the Holy Land. it's a 6th century mosaic that I don't have a better, I don't really have a better picture. But it covers the entire floor. So it is a map, and if I could read Greek, I might be able to tell you what it was. But it is a map of Jerusalem. But a beautiful Byzantine church. Really cool thing is, again, there's so many different cultures, so many different religions, so many different everything in here that really made Jordan an interesting place to visit, because you could really see in the architecture, in the food, in the whatever, where the influences came from. And I just thought this was cool. I forget that this dates back however long, to be able to put your hand on something that's been there for thousands of years. This is the Greek Orthodox Church of Madaba, and that's the entrance to it. And you can see some Greek features in this architecture. Now the trekking starts. This is the cool part. So Petra is, the ancient city of Petra. Petra dates back to 300 BC. It is the capital of the Nabataean kingdom. It is. There's a town adjacent to it called Wadi Musa, which is Wadi means valley. So this is the valley of Moses. So Moses apparently come through here. It is also, Petra itself is called the Rose City. You'll see why. Cave dwellers lived there again for thousands of years when these cultures flourished. And people lived there up until the 1980s, when UNESCO established this as a World Heritage Site. They had folks relocate out of these structures. So I find it pretty interesting. The first trek into Petra was at night, and you pretty much followed this. This was a mile and a half in, and then you could sit and you could wait. And let me now see if I can find the video. Don't look ahead. Don't look those up. So you would actually enter Petra at the very beginning of the 6th SIT, that narrow panel that takes you into the city. And over a period of an hour or so, maybe a little bit more, people will be taking their way in. And they sit you down. There are these lit candles in these bags. As you are, again, people are just flowing in. I don't know. And they playing all the things. You just sat there, enjoying the evening, enjoying the sounds around you. And what's interesting, what I found interesting was, so we were sitting there, we had made our way into this area, and it wasn't well lit except for the candles on the ground. But I said to the folks next to me, like, we know if we're sitting in the right spot. And then, again, they told their stories, and then all of a sudden the lights came on. We were literally sitting right. And then, we stayed there, just jockeying for position, taking pictures, enjoying the moment. Yeah, I think the music was still going on. It almost felt otherworldly. It almost felt like back then. There's all this music, lots of chatter, lots of talk, lots going on. Cameras everywhere. We're just enjoying the moment. And then we, this was venturing back out. Again, it was an out and back. entering into, this is the Treasury building. What? Get closer, sorry. Sorry, I don't sit still well, so I apparently don't stay put well. So, but yeah, so this was on the walk back out, but you couldn't help but turn around and look to see what was there. And you can see all the candles lit, and you can see the structure itself also lit. And then, these are, okay. The next morning, we went back and did the trek during the day. Can I do this? So the entrance was over on this far right portion, and it's 1.5 miles into here. So this is the Treasury building in the middle here. If you can see where the mouse is, Treasury building here. So that's 1.5 miles. And then it was another 1.5 miles all the way out to another church out here. And then another about 0.5 mile out to this monastery. And I did not make that trek. I did not have time to, but it was very interesting to see it during the daylight. And this was pretty much just making our way through the Sikh. Again, very narrow channels. Really kind of looks like the desert Southwest. And as a matter of fact, when I was out there, I had a friend who was trekking the desert Southwest, and they were posting pictures from their trip, and I couldn't tell if they were my pictures or his pictures. But this was going through the Sikh. Pretty wide to begin with, lots of activity, horse-drawn carriages if you wanted that, and very narrow passageways. Similar to the desert Southwest, they warn you that, make sure you're there on a dry day, make sure you're aware of the weather, because there are these channels that go outward from the main Sikh area where if it's raining somewhere out there could be a flash flood. So you do need to be aware. But this is where you start to see some of the dwellings. You see stairs in the middle here. If you can see here, there's a channel along the side. They were very much experts at moving water. We'll see more pictures of that momentarily. We have elephant sculptures, but you can see the sandstone, just the way it has been eaten away over time. And again, here you see these little channels channeled water into the city. More, again, showing their expertise at moving water to where they needed it. And then our tour guide basically said, he stopped us at one point and he said, okay, stop right here. I'm moving. And then when he finally kind of turned around and let us go, that was our first little glimpse of the treasure, which was pretty cool.
So this was actually used to people living there.
Yeah. And I'm sure there were parts of it that were more touristy. I know this has been photographed forever, but it was very interesting to see up close. Pictures do not do it justice. And again, like I said, this is called the Rose City, and so everything is very much that rose color. And as a matter of fact, I think these are the sneakers I wore there, and I think they're probably still red. Yes. It was pretty warm. I do have some photos later on there. There were days that it was 40 degrees Celsius, so 105 during the day. It didn't really drop that much cooler in the evenings. Cooler and a little bit more comfortable, but not to a chill point of view chill. But I picture a lot of this trek looking like it would have hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. Donkeys everywhere, camels everywhere. And again, you see the dwellings, you can see the buildings, you see these structures, you can see where they would have gone into these buildings, if you will, cut into the sandstone. So again, this is where I could picture people living. There's nothing in there. I'll show you. Yes, and there's nothing in there. Certainly someone selling their wares, but I can picture this being a very traditional look for some of the inhabitants. There was over on the table, I have a book of Jordan. There's a huge map. There's also a book called I Married a Bedouin. There's a woman, back in the, I guess 60s, that she, was an Australian and she traveled to Jordan and never left and married a local and continued to live there. And what's interesting is there's a shop, in the, I don't have a picture of it, but there's a shop in the city. Again, it's touristy, but this woman, she and her son have organized a group of ladies who create jewelry. So bracelets, earrings, that incorporate facets and designs from the architecture into the jewelry. And so these ladies have a job, and they create beautiful wares, and yeah, and it helps sustain, the folks there. Another amphitheater. Sandstone was, and the pictures don't do it justice. It was just absolutely beautiful. So again, more photos of where people would have lived. You can just picture thousands of people just hustle and bustle through here. No, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, so everybody who had been living there up until the mid-1980s, they relocated them. Again, I envision this looking just like it did ages ago. Main colonnade, this would have been where the shops were, for buying whatever wares you might need. Gardens, there were some gardens through here, some churches through here. And again, original cobblestones. I was trying to do research to figure out what the story was that I remember, but I distinctly remember taking this picture because in the center here, it kind of looks like a camel. You see the stone in the background between the two columns. There's a story there. I can't remember it, couldn't find it. But I thought the photo was interesting. So again, this is a couple mile trek from the very beginning, to throughout the city. The first mile and a half, you were in the six, so you were closed in on the walled area. But once you got past the treasury, it opened up, and it was, as a matter of fact, I had an umbrella up just to keep the sun off me. It was very warm. And this is looking back, you can see this is the colonnade going back towards the treasury. Treasury was like in back here somewhere. Again, mosaics are very popular. This was an excavation site of a church, and they uncovered some mosaics on the floor. Lots of different columns and column tops. This was on a bit of a hill. So here is the colonnade. So the main road going through there. And again, you can picture the shops on one side, gardens on the other, churches, whatever they needed for their civilization. Again, looking back, so the route we walked out was coming through here, and then out here, and then out down the main colonnade. So as I said, when you left the treasury was buried back in here somewhere, and you followed it out, and you were really out in the open at this point. It is when it does get rain, they do channel the water into that area so it doesn't overtake the area. And what you see here, these are on this side, these are the royal tombs. So this is considered parts of the royal tomb, but there's nothing in there. They're just, at this point, they're just empty. Now, also there was certainly there's no electricity or anything. So these were just big open spaces, occupied with whatever bedding and living things that they needed. Again, just beautiful sandstone. And I was walking back out, so it's kind of an out and back hike. You had to get yourself back out. But it was just interesting different times of day to see just how the sun just shone beautifully on these structures. And I'm amazed that people lived here up until the 1980s. I'm sorry? Well, again, I think from what I understand, when UNESCO took over the location, and they didn't move very far. I mean, where they moved is more of a modern set of structures pretty much overlooking this from a higher hill. So I hate to say they were forced out, but that probably is what happened to preserve the integrity of the site. So going back in, and I was determined to get one of those picture postcard views of so I ended up, where did I go? I think I ended up here. One of these little nooks up there. There is a viewing point from way up high, but you have to access that from another trail that I unfortunately didn't have time for. So again, checking out the view of the treasury. And now I'm starting to make my way up. And it was interesting to see, again, different times of day, how you can see the sandstone looking differently. So as I said, so I'm headed up to this spot right about here. And it's interesting to see, you know, areas like this are worn away. You know, areas on the left here, you could see where erosion has taken place, but the treasury, the structure of that facade is just very well preserved. And then got to take that picture, and then walk coming back down. I think it. No, there was a lot of scrambling. Yeah. Yeah. So I ended up here in this center area. There is another viewing area up the very top, but again, that was accessed from another trail from a different direction, and I just didn't have the ability to get there. One thing I do in the show, I'm gonna go back a few slides. I think it was the first one. Oh, it'll be the first one. Never mind. I'm not gonna go back that far. But it was just interesting to see just how this area opened up. Again, opening up to the colonnade in the main area. So what we have here is on this far right, you'll see the treasury, and then on, I guess in through here, coming along the front side of this wall is the sick getting back to or getting out of this city. And this is just making my way back out. Lots of activity. You had to be listening for those horses because they weren't stopping for anybody. It was interesting to see how busy it was in the morning and how much it calmed down later in the day. And then I'd find little bits of this where just something green was growing out of nowhere. If you know me, you know I've spared you the food pictures. But we took a cooking lesson, which was pretty cool. So they had us broken down into groups, and we were, get my notes. We were preparing different things, which we then proceeded to have for dinner. The menu is up there, and we were gloved. We were put to work. We were chopping, we were cooking, we were tasting. Everything was so good. Now these two big dishes here, it's called magluba, which means upside down. So basically the way this dish is built, these pots are huge. Very traditional way of cooking. They will brown their chicken pieces in the bottom, and they're layering in vegetables. They're finally layering in rice, covering it with water, letting it simmer. And it ends up, what they do is they turn it over and it ends up looking like that. So now the chicken or your whatever your protein, whatever is up on the top. Oh, don't look at that one. Hold on. I got a cool. So it's a very impressive presentation. Food was amazing. We did at one point we stopped at a family, part of the tour. We stopped at the family's house for a traditional meal. They cooked a lot of the things that we cooked as well. I took the picture out, but what I found interesting, and again, this just shows the mix of cultures. There was a set of shelves on the back wall, and there were, photos of family crosses, and bottles of wine. And we were like, wait, Muslim country? They're like, no, they're Christians who live there. So a lot of just, again, a big mix of cultures. And I can tell you that the Jordanian wine was actually pretty good. I don't know that they drank it, but we certainly did. Oh. I'm gonna say, they probably do. I got a picture coming up, and I will touch on that. I mean, there's a lot of fruit markets, open air markets with fruits and vegetables, meats. I fear that my pictures have gotten a little bit out of sequence here, so bear with me. We took a little excursion in the Red Sea. This was us walking out to our little dinner cruise. And you see the little boat there. I figured that's where we were going to be. And then we got on that little boat, and all of a sudden it took us out to our real boat, which was pretty flippin' cool too. So we spent. It was very interesting. They were very careful about where they were, because we left Aqaba, which is in the north part of the Red Sea, and we could only go down as far as Saudi Arabian border. And we had to stay out of the Israeli one. So we were very careful. Maybe trekked maybe an hour south. Just had a lovely time on the ship. And now they're in order, kind of in order. Right around sunset, had the ship to ourselves, watching the sun go down. You could tell this is not their first rodeo, because we got out as far as we could go. It was pretty much when the sun set. And then as we were coming back, we just were lounging on these, low platforms, and just enjoying the, again, it wasn't very cold. I mean, it was not very cold, and we're even on the water. And we knew there was dinner that was a part of this. So when we got back to our original point, they dropped anchor, and there's a grill. They fired up the grill, and they fed us, just floating there in the Red Sea. Absolutely beautiful. We were not roughing it one bit. Next morning, so to your point, next morning we went out shopping for all kinds of things that we were going to have during the day. They had fresh fish. They were bartering for said fresh fish. What this says that goods are here within 24 hours of being taken off the ship. So they probably were brought in from somewhere. But if you think about it, there's a lot of, in that area with Egypt and right at the Mediterranean, there's a lot of access to all kinds of foods right there. So lots of fresh vegetables. The sign on the right tells you that these are vegetables that are taken to the hotels and such. I was in charge of beets. I think I had to buy like 3 pounds of beets. I think this guy was trying to figure out what the heck I don't know. He kind of gets funny looks, but lots of fresh vegetables, and all the markets we went to were very similar to this. In Aqaba, in Madaba, here in Aqaba, lots of fresh fruits, vegetables, meats. So you've got your pots on the bottom. That's where you would cook your meats, sometimes underground, and your meats were pretty darn fresh. Breads were really good. And then to counter the trekking we had done the day or two before, we spent some time in this little tent-ish area right on the Red Sea. I had no idea how. I'd heard, I guess, as I was approaching the time to take the trip, I've heard that the diving in the Red Sea is stunning, but I had no. And I picture Jordan, I picture desert, I picture dry. I didn't picture crystal clear water, and I didn't picture bright blue seas like this. So truly stunning. And then we cooked more. And they put us to work. We were cooking, stewing, lots of things, lots of tomato sauces, lots of spices. And the view wasn't too shabby. Lots of grilled foods. Everything was very fresh. It was fresh vegetables. I mean, you could perhaps argue that this was part of a tour, and they're feeding us what we would expect. But the foods they were feeding us are the ones we saw in the markets. So they may maybe prepare them a little differently, but there was still fresh fruits and vegetables. It was all really good. I'm sparing you from most of the food pictures. So yeah, so this is the one photo. This is down in Aqaba. So certainly as you move further south in Jordan, and again, this was September, it was 40 degrees C. The water was about 70 degrees, but the air was about 105. We had a chance to go to a mosque, which I thought was very interesting. I enjoy the churches, the mosques, the synagogues. One, because the architecture is typically very beautiful. Lots of history there. And again, people are just very, very welcoming. This was a particularly beautiful mosque. Here's my note. That's how old this place was. This is actually a very new mosque. This is the Al Sharif Hussein bin Ali Mosque, built in 1975. So pretty new. There was a mosque up in Amman that I just didn't have time to get into, but I do enjoy visiting them. Again, the architecture is beautiful. The unlike churches where you would have depictions of people, in the mosques, so it's all geometric patterns. So no depictions of people. This is where you would sit on these stones, and there's water taps coming out here. This is where you would wash your hands, your face, your arms, face, arms, hands, and feet before going to pray. So you're washing away impurities. And women did wear headdresses when we walked in, but just a beautiful structure. There was obviously not prayer going on at that moment, so we were able to enter, but just beautiful architecture in these mosques, which again, you would find at a church in the middle of Europe and things like that. But here we are wandering around, and this little guy was he just kind of followed us around trying to figure out like what our deal was. I don't think he spoke English. We didn't speak Arabic, but he just kind of played around. He was curious about us. So yeah, so this is the exiting of the mosque. And then we started to do a little bit more trekking out into the wilds. Gary was getting into the signs with the camels. We all had pictures with the camels. We entered. This is a Wadi Rum. Wadi Rum means, so Wadi again is valley. Rum means sand. So it is actually a high point. Where did I see this? It was the Wadi Rum itself. This valley contains the highest elevation in Jordan, which you don't get that feel when you're there because everything is just so flat. You forget how high up you are. They call this the 7 pillars of wisdom. And those 7 pillars are, because I was kind of curious, pure, peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. So that's how this structure is named. But just in pictures do not do it justice. So we were taken in here. We were going to be staying at a Bedouin camp that night, which was pretty cool, although we were not roughing it. Had a camp for lunch. I feel like I'm standing in front of you guys. This was a typical meal that the Jordanians would have out in the desert. They would take a big, huge, tall contraption, for lack of a better word, bury it in the sand with some coals, and just feed it on through. And so this was lunch. So again, lots of roasted vegetables, roasted meats, things like that. And then we were not roughing it. This was our camp. Air conditioned in the camp. I wasn't complaining. Did I mention it was 40 degrees Celsius? Yeah. So this is typical of Wadi Rum. I think the movie called The Martian was filmed here. There are lots of camps in Wadi Rum that look just like this. So the structures you see in front of you are all facing the same direction. And the front, you'll see it in the photo later. The front has is clear, so you can see out of it. Oh, yeah. And then we did a bit of a 4x4 ride, holding on for dear life at times. Yeah, so this was the front of those structures, and there's actually, I think the front here is open to be able to view through. But we just went on a 4x4 ride through these structures. Lots of sandstone. I don't know. It was just kind of fun to be out there holding on for dear life to this Toyota. That at some point they had to stop, and I don't know. They flipped up the hood as we were being distracted by something, and they were trying to cool it off. But just a real beautiful area. And again, you don't get a feel for how high up you are from looking around. But again, a lot of red sandstone, a lot of nooks and crannies, just very typical of that southern Jordanian region. I think this is why my shoes are still red, because I'm traipsing through here, because you got to get up there and just see the viewpoint. Camels everywhere. Probably in this area, probably a little bit more for show, but certainly very functional in this area. And they were just absolutely everywhere. And the pictures do not do it justice at all. Driving through was just, I suppose the way I know some trails around here, where I can say, okay, at that rock I turn left. I'm sure that's what they know, but as an outsider, it was like, But this was the camp that we stayed in. Oh, and then our chariots came. This was our next ride. And we were getting seated, checking out the camels. We went on a sunset trek. And they were all pretty cool with us. Yeah. And my reminder, if you ever get the chance to, so they will sit down. They'll sit down like you see here. They'll be sitting down. You sit on it, lean back, because they go up back end first. If you're leaning forward, you're going to eat it. Lean back and hold on to that thing in front of you. And then they took us out. I kind of like this picture because I like the Bedouin guy with the phone. Just kind of look funny. And so we made our way out, and just they had a little charcuterie board and some wine and beer and cheese, and we just kind of hung out there and watched the sunset. The camels, they seem to be just chilling too. But it was just absolutely beautiful. Some of them, I guess, were prone to spitting. But most of them were pretty darn chill. I like this picture because it's a car just happened to go past, and you see all this dust come up here. How do you adjust? Like I said, you kind of knew. No, you don't know. I think the first time I knew it was going to get up. I don't know the second time I knew, but you have somebody there with you who's watching. Yeah, there's a guide who's making sure everybody gets up onto their camel. Okay, but yeah, they do tell you to lean back, because the camel, as it's sitting, it'll go up back end first, so you have to go down. There like here. So you would sit here, and there's a handle up in the front, so you just hold on. But that's it. No seatbelts, nothing. Yes. Okay, sure. What was the question? The question was, what do you hold on to? So you hold on to this handle right there. And then we headed on, or no, they were coming back for us to take us back to our camp. That was our camp. Need proof that I was on there. There we are. This was now we are, this is at the Dead Sea. Yeah, and yeah, again, we weren't roughing it. We have a lot of pools, but you can see the, the air temperature is 35, which is like 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and the pools were not that much cooler. So this is the lowest point on Earth, which was pretty cool. Again, a little bit out of order here, but this is at the Dead Sea in Jordan. The land you see on the other side is Israel. Dead Sea is, the saltiest body of water on the Earth. I don't know what sequence the pictures are here, so okay. We'll get back to the floating part, but this is the again, a little bit out of sequence. This is the Jordan River. So this is where Jesus was first baptized. So what you see where I am standing is in Jordan. The land across from you is Israel. There is some holy water for you to take home should you choose to. There were several folks either being baptized or taking, immersing themselves in the Jordan River. But again, just so many different cultures and religions right there. Beautiful, beautiful church. Lots of Greek references in the architecture. And then I think one of the last things we did was you got to float in the Dead Sea. And you can very well, but it is weird because you feel like you're just going to flip over and it is very weird. They tell you do not get any in your mouth or your eyes, your ears, because it is, I remember getting like one little drop on my lip and it was like, ooh, very salty, which is why you can float without even having to move. But again, your buoyancy kind of is weird. Yeah. Wow. Oh, wow. I had not heard that. Not surprising. Oh, really? Oh, so folks here are saying they've been pumping some of the water out. So, wow. Yeah. That would be interesting. And then you're supposed to slap this mud all over yourselves. So we partook. And that should be my last slide. Yeah, that's my last slide. If you can believe it, that was 250 slides. But I take a lot of pictures. I probably thank you. I mean, a lot of good places to trek. And again, the Jordan Trail itself sounds beautiful. Again, it goes through a lot of villages. Lets you see a lot of Jordan. But as you see in the pictures, don't necessarily have to rough it. And it was definitely a place I would go back to. If I were to go back to places, I'd like to go to new places every time. But definitely a place that I think you should visit. Not many. I mean, we had the night hike was maybe 3 miles altogether, and then the day hike was maybe 10. So not a whole lot of trekking, or like foot trekking. This was actually a gate 1 tour. So again, intended to be more sightseeing kind of thing, but a lot of, and it was one of their small group tours, so there were only about 15 people on this tour, so it was a real interesting experience because you could get to places you couldn't with a huge group. Yeah, and just you could find nice little restaurants to just find intimate times to just enjoy the local food and stuff. So they did a real nice job with that. Oh yeah, murky. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it was. I'll go back a few slides here. Yeah, it was definitely murky. I had a picture. Well, yeah, no, this was definitely not like that. No corpses floating in here, nothing like that, like the Ganges. No, I mean, so there was no, maybe it was not raining. I mean, my mind kind of goes to maybe it was raining somewhere upstream and it churned the water as it was coming down here, but I don't remember rain in the area. It could maybe if tributaries are coming in, maybe the water's turning around. I don't really know. Hot ash. Where I pulled that from, I don't know, but but I do remember because we were asking the same thing. I mean, Jordan is really their main industry is tourism. But it is beautiful, and I mean, I can tell that the people who live there, they really don't want for anything. It's a very much a modern place. Lots of fresh food, fresh vegetables, fresh meats, and people look like they live very, very comfortably. Any other questions? No, we kind of kept out of that. The tour guide, who I actually still keep in touch with, is Jordanian of Palestinian origin. So it's probably safer to just, yeah. I mean, I hate to say, but it's one thing to have a discussion, but it's hard in that region to not have it get emotional, right? Because he still has family, this tour guide still has family in Palestine that he doesn't see very often, and some families in Jordan. A couple interesting stories. He did have one thing that the tour guide did tell us was, so in the Muslim culture, a man can take multiple wives. So he has two mothers. But the interesting story was that, because he said, let me explain. And so I guess his father married, took a wife, and they could not have children. And they discussed among themselves if they should take another wife so they can collectively have a family. And he could have only taken a second wife if the first wife was in agreement. And they agreed to take a second wife, and that second wife had the family, and now all the kids had two mothers and a father. So interesting. Yeah. And to us, perhaps that sounds weird, but I mean, his stepmother just passed away last year, and I mean, you could see it. I mean, it hit his heart as much as it would any. So to him, it doesn't know any differently to us, and maybe it's a little odd, but it's very much part of the culture. I'm not saying everybody has got 12 wives, but they approach it in a way that everybody needs to be in agreement before they do that. So. Questions? Go to Jordan, wander more.
And Paula, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your enthusiasm and desire. I guess when you will be running your tour. Okay, well, thank you all for coming. January will be our next meeting. As of this point, we don't have a speaker, but we're going to get someone. Enjoy the holidays. Thank you.